Hello. I got back from Seattle just recently, like 5 or 6 hours ago. Had a sleep, and then I thought I want to do a video very quickly. Upload it just to round off that weekend, and say just amazing experience. Utterly loved it. The vibes for like the American regionals, which is way more positive than the European ones. I feel like I can say negative things to the European ones because I do them all the time in Europe. It was just awesome. Everyone was so excited. Everyone was so happy. There was loads of cosplaying in the team meeting. Everyone was really happy to sort of cheer and stuff like that when the judges were going through the meeting things. And of course, you had like the people from Ravensburger as well saying like they're really grateful for everyone here. Awesome. Everyone I interacted with was awesome. It was lovely to have people come and say hello and got to sign some Cogsworths and different other cards as well. Yeah, take loads of selfies. Just amazing experience that I remember forever, and just sort of as in a TCG event, it's probably the best one, or the one I enjoyed the most. I can say out of all of them, just amazing. I'm definitely going to try and make an American one next year as well. So yeah, awesome event, great fun. I had an amazing time. Getting into the actual gameplay. So we brought Blue Steel, Wheel, Non-Wheel, and RP, and I wouldn't say I was like 100% not on the fence on what I wanted to play. In my head, I sort of knew I wanted to play. But those were the decks I had to practice in, and I sort of knew what to do with the matchups. And we did the Friday constructed event, which is 8 rounds of Swiss for 512 people, I think. And we played that, and that was awesome. And we ended up getting top 32 with a very similar list to this. It was just we had 2 Argus, 1 Broom, instead of the 3 Brooms, and that run really well. And the only reason we played the wheel list is we thought, surprisingly, I was getting recognised, and even during the Swiss rounds, it was the majority of the people I played, like 7 out of the 9 I played knew I was. So I thought I'll play a deck that I thought on the main event I'll play a deck that maybe is not 100% what people would expect from me. So I was going to play no wheel on the main event, and I'll play wheel on the side event. But to be honest with you, even in the side event, it was every other person sort of seemed to know I was, and the deck just ran amazingly. It felt really good. So like I say, I ended up getting top 32 brackets to get the extra ticket things, and you get some Rapunzels with that. Um, so it was just working fine, and honestly as well with these events, confidence sort of should come into it in a lot of the time, and it just felt right. I felt very confident on it. I felt like I could bring that to a room, especially of what was in that room as well. Felt like there was a lot more green than you saw anything. A majority of my matchups had green. Green still was the main one, but green purple as well. And the Ruby Sapphire one you just hope to split with, which we did in the main event. But yeah, it runs smoothly in the constructed event, which I was really happy with. It's just classic, you're gonna have those games where you brick and get 3 wheels, and you have to try and turn that into a win. 3 wheels in your hand, try to turn that into a win, but we ended up doing that, and just yeah, it ran really amazingly. So when the main event came around, I thought, right, I'm just gonna stick with this, and I really like it. The only changes from that Friday to the actual weekend was we went from having 2 Argus, 1 Broom to just 3 Brooms, and it was basically I was staying with Sky, the no wheel, just one of the Blue Steel goats. I was staying with him at the time, and got back and I was like, hey, I want to change the list up. I just think on the Friday the Broom was overperforming. Like at one point it killed 2 Diablos. Like I don't even know how it does that, but it was just really overperforming. It was locking out green steel players if you didn't find the fire the cannon. So now you cover Diablo with 6 options, and we didn't really face any RP on the Friday, so it was just really performing very well. So I just swapped it to that, and then of course, as your brain wanders, it's like I want to keep improving this, and I was like, I want Simbas and Arthurs in there, but of course, talking to Sky, who's a bit more of a grounded player and could talk some sense into me, I was like, no, well, it actually had worked fine, so I'll just stick with that. And to be honest, with you, overall, yeah, it was top 128 finish, which isn't amazing. It was a 405. We wanted to go one further, and we were generally there's 2 moments I'll cover where I think I could have turned that into enough to finish it and go to the next day. But of course, you never know if you were too owed a match in your 5th round, how your pairing sort of went out from there. And if I'd ended up getting 4 Ruby Sapphires, I probably wouldn't have even got the score I got. So you have to be just grateful with how you finished, really, and just you can't turn back time. So what happened happened, and if you had some mistakes, learn from them. If you didn't, don't just try and enjoy the experience. Don't beat yourself up on it. So starting the event, we went straight into green purple, and my prediction was green purple was going to do very very good at this event. I think because in the Europe it's just a popular deck. Everyone plays it. It makes cut. It does well. It has a lot of room for skilling. Like there's so many lines you can do in there. So many different ways you can achieve the win. I think it's an awesome deck. I really thought it was going to go further than it did, and I thought maybe some Americans might have picked it up and maybe learnt from what they've seen for European events and just maybe practice the deck. And there was some in the room, like I said, I played some. It was kind of a matchup I wanted though, because I find blue still into that is very good. You just sort of ramp, put a Tinkerbell down, and then they're sort of locked out from doing much. The only thing they can really do is use evasives to sort of cheese a win and just rush you. But that was fine, and the player sort of afterwards asked, was there any way to improve that? That was a 2-0 first win to start off with. Was there any way to improve that matchup? And I said, like, you just basically want to Clarabelle my Quill, like the best thing green purple got going into set five or whenever they, yeah, set five when they got a Clarabelle. Is basically that they can break the quill, and that's something they couldn't do before, because before it would just be like Ruby Sapphire and Blue Steel just quilling like mad, and they never had an answer for it. But now they have a very effective one, and it also sets up a shift line. So you basically have to hunt for that, which is kind of hard to do on the blind, but you know, by game two, you should sort of be realizing that and trying to use that to your advantage and stop them getting hyper. Because we were at like 12 ink, of course, to their 6 at most of the time, and we're just double spelling and doing so much. Hiram's getting so much card draw because they can't really remove that either. So that was awesome. Going through again, yeah, there was a few other green stills in there that we managed to get 2-0 wins on. Again, it's just you. It's the same way you'd mulligan anyway. You pretty much always want to look for a fire the cannons. If you don't find it, you'll probably end up finding a broom in your hand. Even one game we didn't get a broom or a fire the cannons in our hand, and we just went Porp, Tippo, Hiram, and then we set up a quill, and I basically just went over them. They actually had Diablo Shift with it exerted, and they were getting the card draw, but because you're playing at such a high ink advantage, they weren't really able to set up a strong discards engine. It was just like it didn't matter that they had 20 cards in hand because they could only really play one of them a turn. Whereas I could play multiple things with high ink advantages and just set up aerials and turn sideways and win. So yeah, it was that. There was loads of splitting that happened as well. Just there was a Ruby Sapphire we played, lovely person, and that was what I expected that to be, a split. The one thing I mentioned before I go into the two misplays is we didn't see any Ruby Amethyst at all. So Rise of Titan, the only time I used Rise of Titans, um, was once on the Friday event because I had nothing else to do on the turn besides play Rise of Titans on a Emerald Chromicon, and all they did was just play another one. So Rise of Titans really underperformed. Possibly if I played Instant Ruby Amethyst or any deck that had location, literally any deck that had a location in it, which we didn't play into any, it would have been useful, but it just never came up. And maybe I can take that as it is, but it also made me think, because of course I want to analyze this and see how to improve, was that I think I was very much building the deck for what I face here locally in the UK and what I see in my area compared to what I might see at the event. Even though I saying that, if you looked at the percentages, Ruby Amethyst was like third with like 17%. So there was still a very high chance I could have seen one. And on the draw, I think it's very hard to win that matchup without location hate. But of course, on top of that, a lot of them were on these Finder Keepers build that were ending up dropping locations to a lower amount. So, you know, overall, I think Rise of Titans was actually a bad pick for me. But I don't know. I just felt like I needed that cover. But you live and you learn. And, you know, you try and prepare for the best you can. So I think that just drops for now, and maybe if I'm going into a room where I just anticipate Rise of Ruby Amethyst, we look at adding that 2 slot, because that 2 slot for Rise of Titans has very much been my flex spot. I think I might want to change that to maybe some big Simbas now. I mean, only for the rest of set 5, which I've got an event in Italy, and that's about it. But overall, the deck sort of performs fine. The two misplays that I felt sort of were the hardest part was that I felt maybe could have turned me into a day two, was against the green purple player. I believe they actually went on to win a Mickey, so that was awesome. Was playing the Relentless Beast, which reset, which I didn't really know why it was in their deck, to be honest with you, and they had an enchanted one. And I was like, they inked it game one. I was like, that's cool. We won game one, and I was like, cool. I don't really know why that Relentless Beast is in there. I'm just happy you're not flooding Merfolks, which they didn't seem to do. I don't think they even. I don't know if they ran Merfolks. I just never saw one. Um, and then game two, they played it out, and I was like, I don't really know why it's on the board and what it does. Does it trade? Then it resets trades. I tried to clear it. I misplayed on how much damage I had to do to clear it, and I was like, that's fine. We'll just see what happens. Because in my head, I'm still thinking it's gonna hit Traitor. Now it can't even hit because it's down to like X amount of health, one or two health. So that's fine. It will just hit something then die. Then they play Peter Pan Shadow. They rush a bunch of things in, and it quests for like 6 lore because of the resetting. And it was like, oh okay, that small mistake. Turned that into a split, which was a bit upsetting. But of course, that's generally on my shoulders and something to learn from there as well. So at least you can learn something from that, which was fine. The only other game was the final game versus Steel Song, which was a bit rough to get Steel Song on the last one. We did play a Steel Song and we 2-0'd it, so I was kind of going in quite confident. I seem to be in the majority of the Blue Steel players that I think Steel Song is actually a fine matchup. I 2-0'd all of them on the Friday, Saturday, and I played on Sunday as well. I 2-0'd all of them besides this one that I split with, which was a bit unfortunate. And the only misplay I think I made there was they had a Queen 1 drop, but it was basically just top deck play it. It felt like they were just throwing it on the board because they had it in the hand, not because they were setting up a shift line. Because they would have done it turn one, and they would have shifted it early, but they didn't. So they played that out, and I didn't clear it. I thought I'll keep establishing a board because it looks like they possibly have a bad hand. I had a grab your swords in hand, and I could afford to play it, so that could have stopped the shift line. But I thought from their hand size, they'd probably most likely have a Rapunzel instead of Queen Shift because I really think they would have just played the Queen Shift line earlier if they had it. So I don't know if they drew into the Queen Shift or whatever, but they shifted Sung Ho Noir. Their hand was quite janky actually. It was like a bunch of uninkable songs they couldn't really use. And then flood a little bit, play P, and then they're just too high on the lore advantage. So I don't know if I chalk that down to misplay or generally I gambled on them having a Rapunzel in the hand rather than the shift line. Because a Rapunzel, if I grab your swords, there was like Daisy and stuff like that on the board. So my thought was if I grab your swords, kill the 1 drop, I leave floating damage on the board. If they Rapunzel heal, they're just going to be so far ahead I can't win that matchup. So that was a bit of a gamble that maybe I should really analyze if it was worth just cutting off the shift line instead of setting up Rapunzel play because it was also the aggro questing one, which is like Daisy, Smee, Lawrence, which uses I think it hunts for a Rapunzel a bit more because it just seems like a really strong card in that matchup, especially if you have Smee and Lawrence and Daisy down. But besides that, I wouldn't beat myself up too much on that. Like I said, I gambled on them just not having the shift line because the way it was playing, it didn't feel like they had it. But still, overall, just great game. Awesome, awesome experience as well. We've got an event in Italy in the 23rd, which will also be set 5. So maybe run this back. But of course, Rise of Titans probably going to come out and we're going to change it around. It's either that or play the no wheel list because I was staying with Sky and Moyen and sort of all the lads who were playing no wheel. It was on my mind and we were just watching them test. And when that deck runs, it runs amazingly. Cheech is awesome. I would like to play it, but I think from its performance and now it's getting a little bit of popularity, maybe it might be the one that people will play. And the only issue is if I pair into that, I pretty much am going to get 2-0'd because its lines are just way more powerful. It doesn't need to wheel dump. It can just, ramp up to tower and has 4 towers. So you can just keep doing that. So even if you let it go 1, they'll just put another tower on board. So we might look at no wheel for the event, or we might just stick with this and make some changes, like I mentioned. But overall, just a great experience. I think as long as you learn something from it, it's fine. I think it was an alright run and ended up making a little bit from the promos that we got over the few events. So yeah, just really enjoyed it, and those are my comments sort of on Seattle.